Hey, how you doing? I hope everything is going well for you today. And thanks for hanging out with me because this is going to be a really fun and kind of deep conversation about something that a lot of Mario fans have been waiting for. And that's the brand new update for Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2, specifically the 1.2.0 version that Nintendo just put out. Now, if you're like me, you probably already know that these games are absolute classics, like two of the best 3D Mario experiences Nintendo has ever created. And just hearing that they've been brought back in an official way on the Switch and the Switch 2 is already exciting enough. But when you see that an update has dropped right at launch, and not just any update, but one that Nintendo themselves marks as required for Switch 2 compatibility, it makes you stop for a second and think, okay, what exactly are they changing here? How is this going to affect the way I play? And what does it mean for the future of these re-releases? So let's just talk like friends for a while, because I want to unpack not only the official patch notes, which by the way are ridiculously short, but also what's behind those notes, what it really means when Nintendo says vague things like, several issues have been addressed to improve the gameplay experience. Because if you followed Nintendo for a long time, you already know they rarely spell things out in detail. They're not like some PC developers who give you line-by-line patch breakdowns. Instead, you get these one-liners that could mean anything from fixing a game-breaking crash to tweaking performance to maybe even adjusting how a texture loads. And that's exactly what we're dealing with here. The note for version 1.2.0 basically says this: several issues have been addressed to improve the experience on both Switch and Switch 2. And then an extra line that says several other issues were addressed specifically for Switch 2. And finally, a warning that you cannot even play this on Switch 2 without having this update installed. That's it. That's the entire patch note in official form. And I know a lot of people when they read that were like, seriously, Nintendo? Seriously, Nintendo? That's all you're going to give us. But here's where it gets interesting. If you cross-reference that with the product pages and the marketing blurbs, Nintendo also advertises that these Galaxy games on Switch 2 support 4K resolution and include certain enhancements like smoother UI, adjusted control options, and basically a more modern feel that's designed to take advantage of Switch 2's hardware. That's not listed directly in the patch notes, but it is right there on the store listings. So when you put the pieces together, you can pretty confidently say that this update, version 1.2.0, is the actual enabler of those Switch 2 features. Without it, the game doesn't boot. With it, suddenly you're seeing these games in ultra-crisp resolution on a modern television, something that even fans of the Wii originals could only dream about back in 2007 and 2010. Now, one of the things I want to really emphasize is how historically important this update actually is. When you look at Mario's history on Nintendo platforms, these Galaxy games were massive in defining what 3D Mario could be. The first game introduced gravity-bending mechanics, small spherical planets, and just that wild sense of creativity where you never knew what was coming around the corner. The second game doubled down on that, but added Yoshi and some of the most challenging level design in the entire Mario franchise. Bringing both of these games together as a package already feels like Nintendo acknowledging that fans have wanted them side by side for years, and then putting them on Switch and Switch 2 with enhancements and mandatory updates kind of makes this the definitive edition, the one that future generations of Mario fans will probably grow up with instead of the old Wii discs. But okay, let's slow down and talk about the update itself again, because I think people want to know whether this changes the way the games play, whether it fixes bugs you might have remembered from the Wii versions, or whether it's just compatibility fluff. And here's the truth. Based on the official notes and the reports so far, there aren't any new mechanics or obvious gameplay tweaks. Like, you're not going to boot into Galaxy 1 and suddenly find new galaxies or altered star requirements. The structure is exactly as you remember. What you're going to notice, especially on Switch 2, is performance stability, resolution boost, and just a cleaner feel to how menus and text render. The community hasn't discovered any hidden changes to level design or physics at this point, and usually speedrunners are the first ones to pick that up because they're so precise with how they test frame timings and glitches. If there was some huge adjustment, you'd already be seeing speedrun forums explode about it. But instead, what people are saying is more along the lines of, hey, it feels smoother, hey, the UI looks sharper, hey, it runs without hiccups on Switch 2. And honestly, that's exactly what Nintendo wants. Think about the language they used. The update is required to play on Switch 2. That's not just fluff. That's basically saying the game in its original shipping form is not designed to interact correctly with the Switch 2 hardware. Maybe it doesn't handshake properly with the graphics pipeline, maybe it crashes after the title screen, maybe it just refuses to boot entirely. So the update is not optional. It's like the bridge that lets a Wii era engine live comfortably on a brand new platform. That's a big deal because it shows how Nintendo is thinking about compatibility going forward. They know Switch 2 is going to carry the legacy of Switch 1 games, and that means patches like this are going to become the norm. Old games will keep getting micro adjustments so they don't break on the new system. And in the case of Mario, they went one step further and actually used the opportunity to unlock a visual boost. And then there's the size of the package. You've probably seen the numbers floating around. The combined download is just under 6 gigabytes. That's shockingly small compared to modern games that eat up 50 or even 100 gigs. So what you're really downloading here is not some massive overhaul, but a carefully optimized port. The games themselves are only a few gigs each. That means Nintendo didn't rebuild them from the ground up, but rather emulated or wrapped them in a way that runs smoothly while still keeping the file footprint light. That's why the update itself is important. It plugs the holes in that wrapper to make sure it works on both Switch and Switch 2 without problems. Let me just say this too. The feeling of booting up Galaxy in 4K on modern hardware is absolutely surreal. People who've tested it on Switch 2 say that the star fields, the sparkling effects, the little animations on the planets, they all look way sharper than you remember. And it's not like they redid every asset in Ultra HD, but the resolution bump alone makes everything pop in a way that the old Wii blur never could. Combine that with the fact that you've got portable play, modern controllers, and cloud save support if you've got Nintendo's online service, and suddenly you're looking at what might be the ultimate way to play these games going forward. Now let's talk about how to actually update, because I know some folks get a little lost with Nintendo's system. If you've got auto updates enabled, you're golden. The system will grab it for you as soon as you're connected to Wi-Fi. But if not, it's as simple as highlighting the game on the home menu, hitting the plus button, and going down to software update over the internet. The system will check, download, and install. And don't worry about your save data. Nintendo's official pages confirm that your saves are safe. They don't get wiped or reset when you patch. Still, if you're super cautious, make sure your cloud backup is active just for peace of mind. Something else that's worth thinking about is how updates like this affect the speedrunning scene. I touched on it earlier, but this is huge for that community. For years, speedrunners have built strategies around frame timings, cutscene skips, and all sorts of glitchy techniques that rely on exact versions of the game. Whenever a patch drops, the first question they ask is, did this break any of our tricks? Right now, the answer seems to be no, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Even something small like changing how quickly a menu responds could affect timing on a world record run. So what you're probably going to see is two categories pop up in the leaderboards, runs on the original Switch version and runs on the updated 1.2.0 version. That happens all the time in speedrunning communities because tiny patches can separate categories. And if you're someone who's into watching world record attempts on Twitch or YouTube, you'll want to keep an eye out for that because it could make the next couple months really interesting. Another cool angle to think about is just how different the experience is depending on whether you're playing on Switch or Switch 2. On a standard Switch, the update doesn't radically change the look. It's mostly stability. The resolution is capped to what the hardware can push, and it's fine. It's basically the same smooth Galaxy you already know, but on Switch 2, the patch unlocks that higher resolution and smoother UI presentation.